You're in Miami then, right?
I'm in Miami, but I'm not. I'm not at the spring break.
Those two, that ship has sailed.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not at this. I'm not at the party right now.
Right. But they say about, do you DJ for those occasionally?
What's that?
Do you ever DJ for the
Well, yeah, I did. Yeah, I was DJing quite a bit down here before Corona. I had some good gigs. I did some regular stuff. Yeah, I had a lot of gigs, and then I'd always do stuff for winter music and all that. And yeah, so it's so.
what are you doing at the moment then?
Oh, I got tons of things on. I'm doing working on a Broadway musical for we optioned the rights to Beach Street, the movie. We got that for Broadway, and we're working on that now.
Cool.
And I've done a film directed, and I've done a few films. I did the 808 film. I was one of the producers on the 808 film. I don't know if you saw it. It came out through Apple. And the album came out on Atlantic. So I was the producer on that. And now I'm doing a documentary on my old group, Rockers Revenge. They reformed after 30 years, and we've done an album and a documentary on the group. And they had weird shit happen in their lives like everyone. So I thought it was a good movie to make.
So you're more so I didn't realize that you're into kind of. Do you direct or you just produce?
Well, I mean the film, the Rockers film, I directed just because I directed it. It wasn't anything I planned, and it isn't anything I'd do again. There wasn't anything. It wasn't. I mean, it's successful to the extent that I've got the story down, and it will be. I think it will be a good film. It is a good film. It's just how it's going to be a great film, but. If I had had a director to do it, I would have rather had a director do it, because in the process of trying to make the record, make an album and direct a film at the same time, it's sort of difficult.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you got to think in two, I'm thinking of the music, and I'm not thinking of how it's being captured visually enough. And so I think the record it's a better record than I produced a better record than I've directed a film. But the film will be okay because it's not meant to be like an artistic, visual statement. So,
you're
like it to look better, but I'm still filming stuff. So we opened for New Order last January, like a year ago. So we filmed that, and that was pretty good. And it's exciting because in 2022 will be the 40th anniversary of Walking on Sunshine, of the record and everything. So basically the film will come out as a 40-year project. So it's sort of perfect timing. And I've got a finished album also. So it's sort of, the album's finished.
So you're not exactly sitting on your laurels, are you?
No, I'm always working, man. I never stop working. I've been making music and films and all sorts of stuff, So it isn't like I ever stopped doing what I do. I mean, it's more like more of the income comes in just from fucking publishers again. Yeah. So I'm not. It isn't like what the work I'm doing. Like I could do nothing, and the work I'm doing now is earning me fuck all. I'm spending more money than I'm making because I put money into the film and into the record. But and the musical could be a big deal, but that's a 5-year project. Before it even gets, if we're lucky, we'll have it showing in 5 years. So that, and that is footing the entire bill to get it to the point where it has to be. So
that's they'll have to nail our coffin shut. We're both the same, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly.
We're like dogs, even though we don't need to. But thank you for doing this, by the way. We've had some really, to be honest, it's kept me from going insane during lockdown, and it's really nice to reconnect with people anyway. Because
I've been doing that a bit, not as much, but I've been thinking about doing something, but I started actually which I'll probably call you about to interview you, but I've started a thing called Sound. It's going to be more of a TV series called Sound Masters, and it produces engineers, DJs, more arrangers. And it's a friend of mine who is a director, but he also has a great camera system. So he came down here. We interviewed Jimmy Douglas, who lives here, and also Oscar G, who's a DJ, but also producer. So we're going to do like a series of that. So basically, I'll definitely call you about that.
Well, I'm up for anything.
Yeah, so that's more like a, 30-minute series of different people.
Yeah.
On a network.
Okay, I want to take you back to the very beginning of you growing up in Boston, right? That's where I love Boston. It's probably my second favorite city after Chicago and just ahead of New York.
Right.
Because I just like the kind of scale of Boston is so, and I like the people and are you from an Irish background by any chance?
No, I'm Jewish, and I know that Boston is an Irish city for sure. The thing is, I that's why I always felt comfortable in London, I think, because I grew up in Boston, and Boston is, of all the places I've been in America, it's the most like England than anywhere. And of course,
It's this. Yeah.
So obviously, that makes sense, but it really, to me, when I finally did get over to London, I felt very much at home already immediately because it just, and I didn't really suss that out until I had spent more time there, and I got, wow, this really reminds me of both.
Yeah.
Being that I haven't lived in Boston since I moved to New York in 1980, so
Yeah. Tell me about your So I know it's a given that you're a DJ and you grew up with Roland, and you obviously you love Philly soul and soul in general and blah blah blah. But where did that all come from?
Well, I mean, music for me came from, I had my family. My mother she didn't know an instrument. She loved to sing, and my dad loved Nat King Cole, and my mother loved Frank Sinatra. So my dad. First of all, they were both very open-minded for their generation as far as like, my dad was really into Nat King Cole, and but he was not musical at all. My mother was musical. My mother came from a musical family, and her first cousin is this guy named Sid Raymond, who actually won a Tony, won an Oscar. He was he was Leonard Bernstein's arranger. So he arranged the music. West Side Story, that was my cousin. He arranged it. I mean, Bernstein was a writer and arranged, but my cousin was his arranger. So he won a Tony and an Oscar. He wrote songs like the Girl Watches theme song, and he wrote Smile, You're on Candid Camera, which was a big TV show in America.
Yeah, I remember it.
And the Patty Duke Show's theme, which husband's identical cousin. So he was huge. And the thing is, what's crazy is his brother lived in Boston. He lived in New York. So basically, I knew his brother. His brother was the one who never was successful. His brother wrote musicals. Nothing ever happened with his brother. Sid was hugely successful. I never met Sid. Like, literally, he died at like 99. I'd never met him, which is like really bad. And his son is an arranger, and he lives in L.A. And I'm trying to meet up with him because he's done movies. He's a huge success too. So we're like, my mother and Sid were first cousins. I mean, they're, right. It's second cousins. So obviously the music comes from there. And now with my daughter she's 6 and she's incredibly musical. And it's just like, I'm going, well, it isn't just that I was a chancer and I was trying to get into the business. It was definitely hereditary then.
Yeah.
But I see my daughter, she's already writing songs. She's like, Papa, record this. I've got a song idea. And she's writing at 6 years old, and she's literally writing songs, not like with lyrics, with a melody, with a beat. I mean, she really is like, I want And she's like, how can I get my music out there? I mean, she's already like that. And it isn't like,
Listen,
I'm doing it, but I'm not like doing it like I was 30 years ago. So she isn't really seeing it. But for some reason, it's there for her too.
tell her to write some 15-second long TikTok shit.
Oh, man.
That's what it's about now.
She's writing. Her godfather is Kaz James. Is a DJ, a really good friend of mine. And I sent him something, and he was just like, because he gave her a guitar. He gave her an electric guitar when she was like 5.
Wow.
And she just picks it up. She's taking piano. She picks up the guitar, starts banging it. It's like open tuning. So she's singing in tune.
Right.
She's coming up with like this punk song. Where did this come from? And I sent it to Kaz, and he's like, my God, this is great, But
Wow.
I'm just letting her do, I'm being supportive. I bought her a piano, and I've got a friend of mine's giving a piano lesson. But she wants to get her shit out there already.
Yeah,
You're making music till way.
Yeah, I know, man. My daughter, when she was 6, I was on holiday, and I was not 6. She must have been 5. I was carrying her on my shoulders, and I was in Spain, and carrying her, and she suddenly started singing. What was it? She'd heard me playing Voodoo Child. Right? And she started singing it in a little squeaky voice. Oh, baby, I'm a Voodoo Child. And I'm going, fucking hell.
I guess when you do music, your kids are gonna be right there.
Yeah, well, they're 25 and 23 now, and they're both musicians, and they both love it. And I never,
there you go. So
I never pushed them in that direction, because I know it's a bit like being an actor, and if I'd have said to them, look, I'd love it if you were a musician, they'd probably go the opposite direction.
yeah, exactly.
So anyway, I think you're onto something there. I mean,
I'm just gonna let her. We tape everything she's coming up with, and then in a few years, when she can actually play anything that really she likes, she can go finish if she wants. And but we try to capture. And she has an iPad, and she has GarageBand, and she's learned to she's learned how to sample her vocal, and she's like playing, a vocal solo. And I go, oh, I did that. I was probably one of the first people who sampled the vocal and played it like that.
shit.
And so I played her IOU, and now she sings IOU to her classmates, and everyone knows that song. So.
I was just watching that literally the minute you came into the room.
That was that was Don Letz's first video.
Do you know what? It's a more naive time, and I love that. There's something about everybody's learning popping and locking and all that stuff. But it literally was playground stuff, wasn't it, as well?
Yeah.
And now it's like got so dark, a lot of that stuff. I don't know. Anyway, but right, okay. So you're growing up in Boston, and I mean, you're like me. I love Philadelphia soul. I mean, it's really at the core of a lot of the stuff I do. I grew up with Northern soul in the UK.
Yeah. Right.
And Sheffield actually is quite a soul town.
Right.
There's a lot of clubs that specialised in that stuff. And and my sisters, who are a lot older than me, used to have a big Motown collection and all that stuff. So that's where I got my taste for it from. I mean, where did you get your taste for that stuff?
I got it. I didn't have older siblings. I got it just from listening to the radio. And in the beginning, when I started, the first radio station, once I was like maybe 10 or 11, maybe a little, I'd listen to AM radio. So the hits.
Yeah.
Hits and all that. And then I discovered 2 radio stations around the same time. One was WPCN, which was the alternative rock. It was a commercial station, but it was like a college station.
Right.
What they played. And this was probably 67, I guess, or 68.
Yeah.
So at that time, they played everything, and they played rock. But, I mean, it was a rock station, but
Beach Boys, Beatles, all that stuff.
Yeah, all the Stones, and Zeppelin. I mean, I heard the first time I heard Zeppelin was on BCN, and then what was great was they would play the albums, right? They would like, we're gonna play this new band, Jimmy Page, Led Zeppelin. We're gonna play the entire album at 9 o'clock. So I had a cassette player, an early one, but I had a cassette player, so I would tape the album. So I had like the Led Zeppelin album like right away. And then when they had done some smaller gigs, but their first big gig in Boston was 1969. So I was 14, and I went to the Boston Garden. My dad we used to go to all the basketball games there. My dad knew the guy in the ticket office. So literally any concert, when I was 14, I started going to these concerts on my own with my friends. I had like,
really, crikey.
We'd all go at 14. We'd go together. My dad had this contact, like, we'd have the best. I mean, we had to pay for them, but we had the best seats. He'd hold every concert. He would hold back these seats for us. So, Rolling Stones, 69, the tour that B.B. King, Ike and Tina Turner.
Wow.
So I saw all these gigs. So basically, I probably discovered black music in that way, other than Motown. But hearing Tina Turner, who was a pop artist, obviously, but B.B. King, and it was sort of the blues, which Boston's a big blues town. So I was already into the blues by then, just through BCN. But then there was also a station called WILD and a DJ named Sonny Joe White. That was a daytime station, a black pop, black station. So through that, I got all those things. But, for instance, like, BCN would have played the full version of Papa Was a Rolling Stone. They would have played the
right.
That's where I would have heard that, right? Whereas ILD was a pop station, so they would have played the 3-minute or whatever the edit was.
Yeah.
Through BCN, I heard things like, and at night, Peter Wolf from Jay Giles, before he was in Jay Giles, he was a DJ there.
Right.
And Joe McEwen, who became a big A&R guy and a friend of mine, through the years, he was Mr. C, and that was his name, Mr. C's Rhythm and Blues. So he would play music. So, for instance, the first time I heard "Drowning in the Sea of Love," Joe Simon, was on BCN. They would play all the Gamble and Huff stuff. They would play, I mean, ILD would play the hits, but BCN would play things before they were hits.
I mean, you were lucky because, like, in the UK at that point, there was nothing apart from Radio Luxembourg, pirate stations. I mean, the main national channels. There was hardly any commercial channels even at that time. So there were no kind of niche. Everything was pop or middle of the road or whatever. There was no kind of like, if I like blues, I'll go here, or if I like jazz, I'll do this, or whatever. Nothing. I mean, US was so far ahead of us.
But then what happened with the UK, which was way better, was you had like a national show like Top of the Pops, and things would come on there that were really odd, and they'd get like a exposure to the entire country. That's what I always felt. I'd go to England, and the cab driver, who was like 60 years old, this was when I first started coming, he would know these songs. He'd be, oh yeah, Top of the Pops, oh yeah, New Order, yeah, I saw, he would know older. It was sort of like the whole family would watch Top of the Pops.
That's right. And it would be red television, yeah.
Yeah. In America, there was nothing like that. So, I mean, the first time there was a national, what you would call a national radio station, would have been MTV or Dick Clark's show or something like that, or Soul Train maybe. But
they had American Bandstand, right? Because we appeared on that in the
American Bandstand, which was but adults weren't going to watch that. Kids watched it.
Right.
In England, the whole idea of Top of the Pops and Granny and the whole family watching Top of the Pops every week was, to me, that was like why music turned out the way it did in the UK, because people would get exposed to things that they probably wouldn't get exposed to otherwise, even if they were when they made it to the charts. It's sort of you would it's why rock bands in the UK always had one ear, or at least were exposed to dance music. You know, like when I first met Noel Gallagher, he was like, he had know like stuff because he went to the Hacienda, and he grew up in Manchester. Whereas in America, rock bands didn't even pay any attention to dance music. That's why we never had a Clash here. We never had a rock group, really, like a New Order that came from America. When you think about it, no major rock dance crossover groups ever. I'm sure that we could think of a few, but not many of them came.
It's very interesting, Arthur.
I mean,
I'm not really.
I'd say LCD Sound System, Talking Heads. There were a few that, at least, you know, Devo. There were some, but I mean, at the most part, it wasn't. You know, you wouldn't have an Oasis or a Primal Stream who were like really big groups.
I did an interview with Jerry Casale from Devo.
Oh yeah,
that was an old friend because we had the same management company in the 80s, and he was saying, you know, they at first they kind of came to prominence properly when MTV started, and they did some great videos, as we know, and really, really edgy stuff, a lot of it. But then it started getting down to the metrics of, okay, who's gone highest, who's the highest new entry, who's this and this. And then and then very quickly MTV got rinsed out to a certain extent. But in the early days, they were so short of content that the interesting bands could get through. I mean, you look at the sort of stuff that Peter Gabriel did, for instance, in the early days of MTV. That was out there. That stuff was brilliant, but it was out there. And so
they needed videos to play. You know,
that's exactly it. Anyway, good. So this is good. Right. Good. Yeah. So we're now up to, obviously, you know, I'm going to talk to you about Afrika, Bambaataa, and all that stuff. How do you meet those guys?
I met them through Tom Silverman,
right,
from Tommy Boy. And I had met Tom. I used to go, when I was still living in Boston, I'd go to New York and go to these things called the Billboard Disco Forum. And they were, you know, they'd happen like twice a year. And you could meet literally, it was one of those, it was at a time when you could walk up to anyone. I met Gamble and Huff. You'd just meet people. They'd all be there, and they'd be really interested in the fact that some white hippie looking kid would be interested in what they were doing, you know? So you could meet anyone at these things. And Tom and I are the same age, and we just became friends. And through that, we became friends. And then when I moved to New York in 1980, I was writing reviews for Dance. He had Dance Music Report. He had a sort of a industry rag type of thing, dance music. And I'd write interviews for him. And I was working in a warehouse by then. I had put out some records, so I was like a producer in his eyes. Right. He was starting a label, and he said, you know, I want to do a record. I want to do a rap record. And I got this guy, Afrika Bambaataa. Do you want to meet him? And we went up to the Bronx and went up to the Bronx River Center and met Bam. And then he said, Bam got 3 groups. I've signed Bam and his groups. And, you know, the first one is this group, Jazzy 5. And so we went in and we recorded the record that became Jazzy Sensation. And then it did really well. I mean, Tom had put out a record before that did nothing. And then I decided we would do a cover of Funky Sensation. I picked that, and then you know, it was live musicians. It was these guys. These guys I had used on Happy Days on the North End record. They lived in Queens. They were young guys. They were like in their early 20s. Maybe one was bass player 19. So they were street kids, and they knew what was going on. And we went in and we cut it, and it did really well. And then Tom said, "Well, we're going to do Soul Sonic Force next." And him and Bam had an idea of doing something with Trans Europe Express.
Yeah.
And they also had the bass line from BT Express called, I think it was the song I Like It, or You Like It, or something. So it was like definitely a slower vibe than what we ended up doing. And I was like, you know, I listened to it, and then I was in a record shop called Music Factory, which is where I met the guys who became Rockers Revenge. I was at the shop, and one of the guys, Dwight, used to play me new tracks that came in, and he played me numbers, and I was like, fuck, that's the beat. That, because when I heard people react to numbers, it was just like, wow, you know, people in the store were just like, what is that track? And so I decided, okay, I'll do numbers, and
so the thing is, with the Kraftwerk thing, became such a part of your kind of beat brand, didn't it, to a certain extent?
Yeah, and you know what? I was into Kraftwerk. It isn't like it was the first time I heard Kraftwerk. I was into Kraftwerk. When I worked in a record shop back when I was, kid, and when I was in high school, I worked in a record shop. And when Autobahn came out, so that we're talking 72 or something like that.
Yeah.
People forget that Kraftwerk had, in America, Autobahn was a pop record. It was a pop record. It was like top 40. It was on like the pop station,
I didn't realize that. I didn't realize it did that well.
It was like way bigger than any other record they ever had.
Really?
In America.
Nah, joking.
It was a pop record, man.
Holy shit. So anyway, you got that.
So literally, I was a fan of theirs then. And then when Trans Europe Express,
brilliant.
It was a great record. It was like, you know what though? It wasn't. I was more influenced by the Jackson 5.
Yeah, me too.
Pulling up than I was by Kraftwerk. But obviously, when we decided to do Planet Rock, when I heard numbers, I was savvy enough to know that was the beat that would get people going in the club, and I thought of it as a club record as opposed to a rap record. I was thinking more, let's do something, because Jazzy Sensation was a rap record and it did really well and it got a lot of radio play. But I wanted to make and then also that was at the turning point of using a drum machine as opposed to a band.
Yes. Yeah.
Think about using a band on Soul Sonic. It was always, we got to get a drum machine. And then we went online, and there was no online. I bought the Village Voice, and I looked, and I found Man with Drum Machine.
Man with Drum Machine.
Yeah, Man with Drum Machine.
It's a good name for a band. Yeah.
Man with Drum Machine. Yeah.
So I think, by the way, Roland should be paying you royalties for that.
Well, you know what? I mean, it's their 50th anniversary, and we're talking about, when I did, I don't know, have you seen the movie 808?
I haven't, no.
Oh, dude,
I know, I'm remiss.
I can't believe you haven't seen it.
I know, I need to, it's on Netflix. It's on Netflix.
I think it's on that. It's on, so you can see it somewhere,
Yeah, and I'll find it, don't worry. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
one of my questions later was going to be, what's your favorite drum machine? So I'll strike that one.
Okay. Well, I mean, it has to be 808.
Yeah,
it's my favorite drum machine. I mean, I still own one, and I occasionally use it, but usually I'm using battery or Logic. I mean, I'm not really using it.
I know. Yeah, it's the same all around
software. But, I do sample some of my old stuff. So,
by the way, a quick question: do you know? Did you ever meet a guy called Tayshan with Afrika Bambaataa? He was one of his backing singers.
Yeah, I do. I did meet him.
So he had his own. Album out on. I think it was on Tommy Boy actually, and I produced it anyway. Just thought, man, yeah. And then so you've got all that going on, and all of a sudden you're hot shit.
Well, what happened was, when we went in on the track, because when they had written the rhymes over the slow Trans Europe Express demo, which we've just found after many, many years, and and then so they couldn't do any vocals that night because it was too fast, because it was like either halftime or double,
in between. Yeah,
you could have rapped at 64 or 129. So Globe had to go back, which actually was a good thing, because then it gave me and John Roby, who was doing the keyboards, it gave us time we had the whole night booked, so we put a lot more music on than we were going to need for the Planet Rock version. So because of using the melody from Trans Europe Express, we thought even that first night, oh, maybe we'll have to change the melody. So we came up with another melody, which became the melody that's on Play Your Own Risk. And then we also did collab things. We did a lot of extra music that ended up not being on Planet Rock, and that was on Play Your Own Risk. So we did the music for both songs in that one night. And when I went home, I took a cassette mix of it with a lot of the collab parts, and it was much more like a Talking Heads vibe. No vocal, a lot of collabs, a lot of electronics, and
Right.
I played it to my wife, and I was like, "We've changed musical history." We're doing what the Talking Heads want to do. We've done it, and ours is legit, because we're doing it with these guys from the Bronx, and it's like street music.
Yeah. And so,
we went back in, and then a week later, we did the vocal.
And so, I mean, I don't think it's overstating it to say that in terms of the way that record was regarded as a kind of groundbreaker, and the way that it appealed to well, it's more relevant in America because it's a more segmented market, but in Britain, it was completely regarded as almost like a perfect halfway house between white pop rock music and hip hop. I mean, we shouldn't ever. Personally, I think it was groundbreaking in that respect, because all of a sudden, I bet the record companies were going, "Fucking hell, this is the mother lode." Not just your record, but he kind of showed that it could be done in a realistic way, and it wasn't only credible with the black market and the R&B market, but with white kids who wanted to be credible. So. And it's a great pop record apart from anything else. How you saw it at the time?
What's that?
Hey, did you see it like that at the time? Did you feel that?
Oh yeah. Well, I felt like we had changed. We had sort of done something that the kids in the Bronx were going to like, and they're right. People like Talking Heads. Talking Heads. Oh, thanks. But yeah, no, like Talking Heads. Talking Heads was a rock band that was an intelligent rock band that the kids and Talking Heads got played in the clubs, and so we thought we had done that, but we had made it more coming from more the black element, more the street element, and so yeah, I would say. When we made it, that is where my head was at. Talking Heads more than Kraftwerk. It was more like doing something that and I did think that immediately. It was like it wasn't a surprise to me. I mean, it was obviously a surprise that it did as well as it did. But I thought we had made something really different that would be influential if people got to hear it. And the other thing is, I was making that for the clubs too. So it wasn't more like. When Talking Heads made a record, they weren't really thinking of the clubs. They just made a record that people in the clubs like.
Exactly.
But when I mixed it like I'd mix a disco record or whatever the music was called at that point. It was disco. And the thing is, without disco, there would have been no rap at all anyway. But, most of the early disco records covered most of the old original rap records covered disco tracks. They were they took the beats and breaks and stuff. Whereas this covered more of an electro rock. I don't even know what you would call Kraftwerk.
Well, wasn't a genre for it at that point. It sounds like you were starting a genre. But anyway, so moving on. So you became a really hot producer, and. Did you produce Candy Girl by New Edition?
Yeah.
Can I tell you why you're a fucker? I'll tell you why. That record kept Temptation off number one.
Yeah, but you know what's very funny? I have the same thing with Paul Young, because Paul Young, wherever I lay my hat, kept IOU off number one.
Oh,
all summer, like the entire summer, it was number two. So when I started working with Paul, I was like, you motherfucker, I would have had number one, and you could say the same to me. But yeah, no, basically a new edition Candy Girl, a friend of mine, Maurice Starr, who was from Boston. He when I moved to New York, we were very good friends, and when he'd come to New York, I'd let him crash in my apartment in Brooklyn. And one day he came in after being out all day, and he was like really seemed depressed, and Maurice was never depressed. He was like the most optimistic guy. And I'm like, what's up? He goes, man, I had all these meetings, and I got this group, and they're amazing, and no one wants to sign him. And I go, well, listen, I had just started Streetwise, and I said, let me hear it. He played me the demo of Candy Girl. I said, dude, you don't even have to go anymore.
It's a fucking hit.
We're going to sign the record. And we signed it, and basically, I finished. I mixed it, and I worked on the rest of the album and did all the mixing.
It's an amazingly accurate pastiche.
They were great. But then he went on to do New Kids on the Block.
Yeah.
I became very, very rich. But yeah. So I became. Basically, what happened was before Planet Rock. I would make my own records and put them out. I'd get them signed, and then no major labels would hire me to produce anything, and they still didn't at that point. What they did was I got hired to do remixes.
Yeah.
Which was different than I think if I had been in London. See, at that time, I didn't get over to London until '87, and that was because I had a real bad cocaine problem, which turned into a flying problem. I wouldn't fly.
Really? You had to really
I didn't get over to London until '87, whereas I had offers to go over. I passed on the first Happy Mondays album. I mean, I passed on a lot of stuff just because I wouldn't fly over. So luckily, the first groups I actually produced would have been New Order and Freeze, because other than Soul Sonic, because they came to me. I didn't go to them.
All right. So
and in America, I wasn't getting offered any production. I was getting offered production from England because my shit was hitting in England and not in America.
Interesting. So I'm not.
They didn't know. No one called me up after Planet Rock and said, "Oh, produce this band." I mean, there were a few, but not really a lot. Whereas in England, I was getting inundated by production.
It's quite forward thinking of New Order to employ you.
I mean, you know why that was? There was a guy, Michael Schamberg, who was a really good friend of mine in New York, and he ran Factory New York, America, whatever it was. It wasn't an off. It was in his loft. He was friends with New Order and Ruth Polsky, who was their booking agent. So he turned them on.
Right.
He made the connection, and then they came over and they sent me all these demos, which I wish I had them now because I just didn't even listen to them. I just said, well, write something when you get here. We went into a studio in Brooklyn, Fred Czar's studio in Brooklyn, and we wrote what would become Confusion and Thieves Like Us. And
Great.
We did a vocal. Bernard was like on, everyone was coked up, so his vocal was pretty shit, but we made it work. And then that's how it all happened.
Good lad. And then did you produce the famous single version of Buffalo Stance, Nene Cherry?
I did two mixes of that. And,
right.
And I know one of the mixes got a lot of play, but I mean that was one of my first mixes when I got to England. The first time I went to Europe, I went to meet him. And this was 86, going into 87. I went to meet him, and I was working with Will Downing at the time, and I met with Chris Blackwell, and who was a friend of mine, and I played him Love Supreme. Chris was like,
love that song. Did you produce that?
Yeah, I produced that.
Oh, fucking hell. That's great.
Thank you. So basically I did that, and then I went to Paris first, and I had met all these French people at Meetum who have stayed lifelong friends. I mean, two of them, Sophie Bramley and Robert Levy, and they took me out, and I met Manu Chao. I met Fred and Rita Mitsuko. I met all the Aaron Loeb. I met like the entire creme de la creme of French music. So then I go to London and I'm like, man, you guys got to check out Paris. And everyone's like, fuck Paris, you know. Obviously, I didn't know the French English thing, but when I was in Paris, I came up with this crazy idea. I went to a club and they were playing Afrobeat and Afro music, and then I also walked by I walked by like the I forget what it was. It was like a symphony. So I basically decided to make an operatic Afro record, which became Jackie Makossa, Jacking the Opera House.
Right.
Literally, I had met, there's a reason I'm telling this story. I had met Paul Oakenfold meet him. He was working for Champion Records. So this is 86, 87. Paul's like he's an A&R guy, and Mel Medali sent him. So he's the only person I really know in London who I'd met at Meetup. So I call him and say, Paul, I got this idea. Can you book me a studio? And he calls Mel, and I talk to Mel, and we make a deal. He'll own the track for the UK, and I'll own it for the rest of the world. I'll get in, he'll pay for the studio. And we went in, and it was the first time, Paul later told me it was the first time he had ever been in a recording studio. He had never seen a record being made, and that was his entree into the world of making records. But the record came out, it became a huge hit in Paris. It was like NRJ. It was NRJ's theme. We got it. I got it. It was great. And then on that trip, I did Nena Cherry. I did Colorfield, Running Away. I did a bunch of remixes. Like I was there. I think I spent like a month there. I was every day doing remixes. So.
I tell you what. Just to interrupt for a sec. You picked the right time, because around about that time was when record companies were willing to spend very good money on remixes. It was like wheelbarrow loads of £50 roots.
They put me up in Soho and this amazing hotel with a pool, and I was there for like a month, and it was just like living
living the dream. And you did also did you do this is a bit later, I think, but Spaceman and Babylon?
Yeah, that was later though. That was like
that was much later, wasn't it? But I mean, the sheer amount of stuff that you've done. I mean, I started making some notes, and I got to like a page and a half. I thought, I'm just gonna not bother anymore. It's ridiculous. So, New Order. Tell me, Hookie's fun, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's good.
We're still very close. I'm close with Bernard and with Hookie. Like one of the few people who are allowed to like be friends with both of them.
Yeah,
because usually you're either a Hookie guy or a Barney guy.
Yeah. We did a British Electric Foundation live show, and we got Hookie on to do Love Will Tear Us Apart.
Oh wow!
He was fucking crazy, man. He would rip his t-shirt off. He'd be dashing around. What a showman that guy is.
When was this?
This was 2 years ago.
Oh wow! Okay.
It's on video. I think it's on YouTube somewhere.
I'll have to check it.
The guy's incredible. If he could have reached the audience, he would have swallow dived into the audience. He was living.
Amazing. We're still very close friends. And,
he's such a lovely guy.
I went to Manchester for his 60th birthday, which was like 4 years ago. And that was really nice.
So I mean, it seems to me like you were doing really well with remixes. You were hot property. You love producing. You always seem to have some form of band going throughout the whole thing. Which is your preferred modus operandi? Which one do you prefer?
Making my own music.
Right. Yeah. Really.
I hate producing bands.
I never
liked it.
What about solo artists? I mean, you've done it for them.
You know what? I like doing one-offs. I really hate working with a group for a amount of time. No, I never.
There's always political agendas within a group.
No, not even that. It's like the chance of me liking enough of the songs that someone's gonna write to keep my interest for like 12 songs is not It doesn't. It never happened. I mean, there's bands I produced. I don't remember the names of the groups, and I did albums with them because it just and it really. And I'd go to groups and go, listen, you don't really. I don't want your life in my hands.
Yeah.
I don't want your life in my hands because I don't. It's like doing one-offs is great because it's like having an affair and then not getting married. Doing an album is like. I've been married 3 times. I'm very happy with my wife now, but I'm just saying the bottom line is in making music, it's like, I never did a New Order album. I mean, I did an electronic album, and in the midst of it, I had a huge personal issue thing going on. So I fell out with Barney for a year for the album, even though I brought in people who ended up working and we made a good album, It wasn't my fault that the songs weren't amazing. It's like they sound great, and the electronic album.
Do you have your own studio now? You got?
I'm just on my laptop. I had a studio in the. I had a studio in the salad days of studios in New York when I could charge $3,000 to a record label, and and I know. I make all my music on my laptop. But, what I'm doing now, what's interesting is I've gone back to a lot. I did these 2 sessions when I was in London in late 90s, early 2000s that I just cut like bass and drums and some guitars and just messed around. Never did anything with it. Gone back to now, found the hard drive, cut it up, and I just got a record deal for this thing with Red Hot and, the Red Hot and, that brand. That's a charity record label. And they want me to I'm doing an EP and an album with them on just these tracks. And I'm so fresh now. And it was like right at the beginning of a sort of electro clash. It was, I was trying to make ESG. I was trying to make an ESG record. So I went in and I had some really good players, English players, and did it. And now I've gone back and anything I do with it sounds really good because the sound and the playing and just it's so raw and it's, it's like, I want to try to get Mick Jones to play guitar and some of it. It's just, but my friend heard it and said, wow. That's amazing. So that's the type of stuff I like to do. I mean, I'm making a lot of music and I'm making some new music using just, my Logic and whatever. I use Logic, but
this is great news for I teach commercial songwriting and production at a place called Tileyard in King's Cross in London.
Oh yeah, I know Tileyard.
Yeah. And, and young songwriters and performers and producers are getting quite self-conscious about the fact that they're just using laptops. So it's quite good to hear an experienced producer like you being so enthusiastic about not regarding that as a limitation, but as an enabling thing.
Yeah, I mean, I would understand why young kids who are really tech savvy and really, really know what they're doing with their programming and stuff would feel that way. Because the way I use my shit, it's like I use it old school. Like when I'm cutting up samples, I just cut it up on audio. Like I'll just copy and paste, and I won't like put it even I won't even put it in a sampler. I just do it like that's how I do it, And I could probably spend like a month learning other ways to do it, but I'm just not, I'm not.
Yeah. What just as a matter of interest, what speakers do you use for your portable rig or home rig?
I just use K-Rocks. I have these 2 little K-Rocks, and I use headphones.
Right. And which headphones do you use?
I gotta tell you, they're called the V Moda, and they're DJ headphones, but I know how they sound because I use them when I teach, and they send them to me when I blow them up. I'll lose them.
I'll call you sponsored then. That's cool.
Yeah, I should probably get some Sennheisers, and everyone tells me they're good. What would you recommend?
Well, I don't mix on headphones, but I do have. I'm sponsored by or was sponsored till recently by Bowes and Wilkins, so I like the sound of their stuff. I mean, in the studio, I use Genelex, but that's just the way it is. But it's like
I do have an old Genelex,
old one,
I do have some old
10 whatever they are, 1040s.
I don't know, man. It's like my hearing is so fucked from DJing, not from producing, that my left ear is like so gone. So I mean, I can hear, but when I'm
turning the treble up to 12, right?
If I'm sleeping, if say I'm in bed and I'm listening to my something off of my phone, like off the speaker. If I'm on my left side, I can hear it well. And if I'm on my right side, it's like the tweeters. It's scary, but I mean, listen, it is what it is. I make a lot of music and need an engineer to mix it. I couldn't. I mean, I arrange my mixes. I get everything ready, and I go. You make it sound correct. I mean, I just did a remix for New Order, but I did. They have a new track called "Be a Rebel," and they've been dropping versions of it for like 8 months. No, maybe 6 months, and because it was used for Nike or Puma or something. So now my mix isn't coming out till like fucking May. So,
no.
But my mix is the one that they're going to use to promote the fact that they're putting out a vinyl, all vinyl. Double.
Right, yeah, this is the thing now. That's how you make money.
But mine's definitely the best one.
Yeah,
They put mine out, and I'm not bragging. It's just I made it sound like an old New Order record, and I put backgrounds in, and I made it like much more of a hit, And everybody who hears it, all my friends from the UK, I'm like, why the fuck do they play this? And it doesn't even have a chorus. It's like the chorus is like Barty says this line once, and what I've done is sort of looped it and made it into a chorus with backgrounds, and it just makes it like a.
Listen, they've obviously got no taste. A bit of a shout out. Did you do the production on the Sun City record? Yeah. Did you do that all? That was the.
I did it all. I did it from.
Well, kudos, man, fantastic. That inspired a football-related song that I did.
Really?
Yeah, we did a song. I did a song for my team, Sheffield Wednesday. Gonna move on up for Steel City, not Sunset. I used to say, thank you. Yeah. Anyway, so
that's probably my high point in my entire career is that record. I would say.
Oh, it's fantastic, man.
Just because all the people I got to work with, what a cool bunch of people, and it was like we pretty much picked them and had to go after people and bring people in, and
it really made a difference.
Yeah, and it really made a difference, and it's a real, it's one of those things that literally, I look back at a lot of the things I got involved with. I go, oh shit, why did I even do? Knowing it was going to be a fuck up, and it was a fuck up, but with that, it was like it could have been a fuck up, but it definitely, obviously, wasn't a fuck up, and it was just such an amazing time and project, and we made it fucking happen.
Well done, man.
That's like thank you. We had to push it, and we just made it happen, and we got all the people we wanted on there. There were a few we didn't, but I mean, 99% of the people we came on board, and it did make a difference. So we raised money, we raised awareness. So
yeah, fantastic. All right, we're getting close to the end now. You'll be glad to hear. And no, it's just
we're still at 85.
I know it's just flown. Man.
Yeah, I know. This is what happens. I did a thing with Armin van Helden and A-Track, and I was like, dude, we're at 83.
No. Well, I've done better than that.
I think it's funny. You've done better.
Tell me what you want to plug first before I get into my end bit.
Well, plugging is, basically I want to plug people becoming politically aware, and not letting the fucking government, and I mean, in America, obviously, people go, yeah, fucking Boris Johnson in the UK, it's bad. I go, yeah, but think of that with millions of people with guns.
Yeah.
Like supporting Boris Johnson, who are also Christian fundamentalists.
Yeah.
Think of that and then go, gee, we're a lot better off.
Yeah.
You are. Because here, it's like, Boris is, as bad as he is obviously more intelligent than Trump, but also he doesn't have followers with guns.
Yeah.
Just, over here, it's scary.
Don't give them ideas.
And the racism here is, in England, I lived in England for 20 years. So racism, it's like not this, it doesn't exist in anywhere the same way. Because I lived in West London and everyone mixed. It was just always a great vibe. Like, I now have a flat in Kensal Rise and I get on the bus and it's like going from Kensal Rise to Portobello. And it's like, it's literally the UN. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's true.
They're fucking civil to one another, So it's literally the one thing I do miss about England, living in London, is that. And in America, it's very different. And people you think who should be more understanding. I live in Miami. The Cubans are fucking racist. The Venezuelans are racist. I can say that, a lot of them aren't, of course, but overall, the racism in Latins in America, in Florida, is off the hook. It's literally insanity. So I've gotten very political. I've done a project with a great painter named Jose Parla, who's very amazing. He started off as a graffiti artist, but he's amazing. He's very well known in London. He did the Chiltern Firehouse. There's a huge the basement. That's Jose. So basically, we've done a record. He has a group called the Wide Awakes, which is a political action group that was started through Black Lives Matters 5.
Yeah.
And we did a record, and one of the songs is called The Awakening. We've done like an EP, which should be coming out through my label in the UK, which is Baked. So that's a project that people should be on the lookout for.
Oh, definitely. I'll love it. Yeah.
The Rockers Revenge album, which will be out next year, but I got a single with Rockers called You Can Do It, which should be out this year. I've got a track with Robert Owens. I've got a lot of things coming out. I just had a record with Mr. Jam that did really well. We did a cover of Born to Be Wild, Steppenwolf. And
I love that shit.
Got a lot of radio play. I mean, he played it a lot on his show.
Right.
I'm making music.
Oh, good man. Good man. And
I'm putting it out, which is even better because making it and not putting it out, it's like the Born to Be Wild thing I started 10 years ago. So when I played it for Mr. Jam and he was like, oh, let me finish this. And I was like, sure, go for it. So,
great. Okay. This is it, the final bit, which is the stupid smash hits bit. Okay, it's like your favorite X. So, okay, so tell me your favorite other musical artist or composer or one of them.
Other, God,
you can't say yourself.
No, I wouldn't say myself. I say my favorite singer, who I worked with, was Al Green.
Oh yeah. Well, I did Let's Stay Together with Tina.
Yeah, yeah. So Al Green
is a diamond, yeah.
And he's like the last man standing, really, from that era. When you think about it, who's left?
Not many. Very, very.
I don't even know who's left. To be honest with you, you go back. I mean, they're all gone now.
Well, I think Tina will be gone soon, I'm afraid to say.
Yeah. No, her doc is coming up, and I wrote it, Tina. Taught it.
Yeah.
That you want, So that was.
I saw the doc. I don't get a fucking mention in it. I'm gonna say in every single episode from now.
That's sort of fucked up because without you guys, she wouldn't have had it.
I know. I've
come back.
I was really pissed off. Anyway, but there you go.
I feel the same way with LCD Sound System, not to the extent, but I gave them their first gig.
Right.
And they did that doc, and and they never mentioned that.
No.
I promote, and James will mention it like in an unimportant setting, but I brought him to London, and it was the first gig they played at my party. So,
no, there you go. Okay.
You should be really pissed off.
No. I was a bit. Yeah. What's your favorite film?
My favorite film is Bronx Tale.
Oh, okay. Who's in that?
De Niro, and he directed.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it's Paul Menteri.
Yeah, I remember now. Yeah,
it's just a great. You know why it's one of my. I mean, there are obviously others. The reason I love that is because he did it and he directed it, De Niro, and it didn't get the attention because I think Casino came out at the same time or something. A safety film came out at the same time, which I love too. But Bronx Tale had such heart. It was just such an amazing. I mean, if you watch that film now, you just go, man, And he directed it, and it's just a really beautiful film.
I'm going to go back and watch that. Okay, favorite TV show, old or new, doesn't matter.
Well, now I'm going to Sopranos. Good, full New York mafia.
Yeah, good man. Favorite book?
Favorite book? Oh my God, jeez.
You ever read?
I do, and I do. You know what? And I read a lot. You know what I'll say? I'll say Love Will Save the Day, which is a history of sort of disco.
Yeah, I know that.
It's a really good for me to like look at back a bit of my past in New York, and I mean, I've read a lot, and recently I'm starting to read again, and there's a series. I want to give the guy a name check because he's really, Love Will Save the Day is Tim Lawrence, who I think he lives in London, and then the other one is this guy Stuart Cosgrove, he's also English, and he's done a series, and he did Detroit, Harlem, and Memphis, and they're the history of soul music, but also political, and they're unbelievably
interesting. Yeah,
they're
good.
Really good. I mean, and he just did one on Cassius Clay called Cassius X. So anything Stuart Cosgrove and anything Tim Lawrence, right? Tim Lawrence did a book on. Also on Arthur Russell, which is amazing too.
Who is an amazing person?
Yeah. And I've actually my favorite current film I have to say is The Creation Stories, which I don't know if you got to see it yet.
No.
That's the story of Alan McGee and
oh yeah, no,
and Irvin Welsh and Dean Kavanaugh.
No,
script. And I just watched that, so that's my favorite current film.
Right, fair enough.
And that's amazing. I want to plug that because it's amazing. And I lived in London at the time of all that whole creation, and I knew Oasis and the whole crew. It's a great film for that time. I think it's the best. To me, it's the best since the first Train Spotting of capturing the mood.
Yeah,
it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah.
Okay, we've done favorite drum machine, 808.
Yeah.
Right, this is an interesting one. So it's like an epiphanal moment in your life, a moment which changed your life, good or bad.
God, that changed my life. Damn.
Is there a moment of realization that when the
I would say when I took the mix of the Rough and Planet Rock and just sort of said, "Fuck, we've actually done something that is, world changing."
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing is when I wrote Messages Love, when that song came about, I stopped doing cocaine and I decided to go on a fast and just have protein drinks under a doctor's supervision. So I fasted for like a month, right? And I was tripping, you trip and you're fasting, you start like hallucinating and shit. And I had this idea for a song, and my friend, my co-writer, this guy, Richard Shear, he lived really close to me. And I had the idea, and I ran over to his house, and I said, I got this song, and it's like, I want it to be like, Hey Jude meets Al Green and all this shit. He wrote Messages Love. And, when I finally got Al on there, that was sort of when I had him singing that back to me, and it was like few years later, and it had been a whole mess of getting him on. So that, I'd say that was another moment.
Cool. And finally, your favorite synth?
My favorite synth.
It can be a virtual one, or it can be a real.
I would have to say, I love the Juno, that Juno 60 that I've used. I still have one. It's I love the string sound on it and the bass, and I mean, that was like the first poly synth I bought, and I've always had it, and love the sounds, and it's a nice friendly synth.
Yeah, exactly. The interest
and the Oberheim too, the OB8.
Yeah.
It had that has classic sounds. I kept mine. I kept my OB8. I kept that. I kept my Pro One because it was used on Confusion, the bass synth, and if you had the so I kept all of those three are the ones I've kept of my original synths. And
yeah, what's interesting, Arthur, is that I've asked this same question to probably 20 people now, and no two people have said the same synth.
what?
Yep. Isn't it amazing? Really amazing. It blew my mind. And a lot of them are kind of electronic music specialists.
Wow, that's amazing.
No, yeah, really. No, I thought they'd all go Mini Moog or
I had a Mini Moog, which I'm not gonna. I sold it. I just got some money for it. I didn't really need it anymore.
Yeah.
I was never. When I had my studio, I had everything. I had everything. If you look at a typical studio from '83, I had every piece of gear you could have.
Yeah.
Then I moved it all to New Jersey, and then once I sold the studio and sold it, I just said I don't really.
You don't need
it. Use it. It's like I'd rather keep a box of newspaper clippings. I might want to use, which I kept all that, and now that I'm doing like my doc and stuff, I can go back and find a Melody Maker from 1983 that I actually have the copy of.
Yeah.
So I've got that, and that stuff I keep.
Brilliant. Yeah. Listen, Arthur, we've run over time as usual, but it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
And I'm definitely going to give you a call about a few things. Actually, I'm going to send you something because I've been working on a museum of DJs and records,
right?
Trying to get built in London, and I have some interest from some pretty heavy people monetarily. But I want to send it to you. I'd love for you to be involved because I didn't know and all that.
Absolutely, man. We need to spread the word.
I'll send you the deck now. And you can
cool, man. Well, I'm a total admirer and fan of your work, so it's been a pleasure for me. So thanks very much and have a great day. When are you coming back to London, by the way?
God, I'd love to be there. I still have a flat there. It's rented out, but I wanted to fix it up. I'd love to be there for fucking Carnival if it's on,
Yeah.
I was there for Carnival the last Carnival, and I DJ'd with the Stanton Warriors, and, I live a walking distance. Yeah, the my new flat, and it was just, I said, I love London, that's why we kept an apartment, and I do love it there, but.
Well, you've got to give me a shout when you come back.
I will, sure.
All right, man, but send me a text.
All right. See you later. Bye.